kick started then. So, as I mentioned, today, I'm going to say again, today I'm going to talk about how to find best use cases and increase accessibility when designing for the voice user interface. Before I started, I would like to ask you a question. How many of you have used a voice assistant? You can answer it in the chat window. I will give you 30 seconds. That's great. I can see some of you have answered the question. Thanks for asking. Thanks for answering the question. That's great. So let me share this and back to the presentation. Great. As I can see, there are tons of people have used voice assistant before. Just to let you know, before I start to talk, if you have Alexa or Siri next to you, remember to mute it. Otherwise, they might be talking to you while I'm presenting my presentation. And since some of you have not used voice assistant before, let me play you a video clip to help you understand more about it.
Alexa, how many teaspoons in a tablespoon?
1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons.
Alexa, put on my Saturday playlist.
Playing your Saturday playlist.
Alexa, volume up.
So apparently, this is an Amazon Alexa commercial when it's launched in the UK. It shows how a voice assistant can become a handy companion in the daily life because it has these 3 benefits. First, it comes naturally to people. Voice interaction is the basic element of human interaction. If you think about it, voice user interface, first user interface in the technology history that users don't need to learn how to navigate the system. The only thing user need to do is just simply interact with the interface intuitively and navigate the system. And voice user interface also extends accessibility for our users. But it's not just a nice to have as a cooking assistant, as you saw it in the video. When I work for Babylon Health, the difference for patients, as you can see this icon, the difference for patients is pen or no pen. It's very important that patients can initiate the service through their voice when their hands are injured. That's why we want to create a voice assistant when I work at Babylon Health. But when we actually implement voice assistant into the service, sometimes it works like this. Let me play you another video clip.
What's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in us lift. I heard about us.
Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
11.
You need to try an American accent. 11. 11.
That sounds Irish.
So as you can see, this is a perfect example of real life, especially for foreigners like me, who have a strong accent and quite often experience issues when interacting with a voice assistant. I'm sure some of you have come across similar issues before. That's why conducting research to understand the user and the situation is very important for voice user interface design. Just like one of my favorite quotes from the co-founder of Google Brain and Coursera, Andrew. He said, technology opens up opportunities, but in the end, it needs to be contextualized. So with that in mind, I'm going to walk you through how I conduct research to understand the context to discover key use cases, then narrow it down to uncover context ideas that increase accessibility for voice design. Let's start with understanding context. So when conducting user research to understand about your users, apart from general user demographics, we might get in any research process. I include voice-related questions, including what kind of voice user interface users have used previously, the frequency of use, when did they use it, or where do our users use the voice application, and what kind of voice application users have previously used, and why do they use it. You might want to include some questions that associate with your industry sectors to gather more insights. When I work for Babylon Health, I also include additional questions focusing on healthcare context, such as has any health-related questions been asked before, or any health or fitness associated application they have used before. Until here, those research questions and findings would help you build up a concrete understanding of your users, and it will provide you more possible context to work with. It also helps you to discover the key use cases. One of the examples from the product that I work on at Babylon Health, it was a medical appointment service that based on Amazon Alexa. If any of you is based in the UK, you know how difficult it is to get an appointment booked here. So in this service, we aim to help our users book the appointment as fast as possible. So to help users get the time slot they want become the most important element in the process. After we went through the research to understand the context, we found out what users wanted most is the earliest available appointment. In this way, users will be able to know how soon they can see a doctor and gives them time. Another example is from my friend, Andrea, when she was designing for a ticket booking service for Eurostar. She went through this research and found out what user wanted most is actually the cheapest ticket service. It helped her to pivot the direction and redesign the service. So after we understand the context, how do we find out how users speak for their request? Before I jump into it, I want everyone to remember one sentence. Experience is the best teacher. No matter you are creating voice design for a smart speaker or mobile app, it's important to examine what already exists, what we can learn from our own product. I have identified 3 lenses to look up content idea for you. They are existing data, customer support, and in-depth interviews. So let's dig into existing data. Many companies who build voice experience start with a chatbot. If your service has an in-app chatbot to interact with users to understand their needs and intents, it will be a source to discover what similar features are already out there and how users interact with it. In my experience, I have analyzed the keywords and questions for the subject I look for. Although the chatbot queries is a great resource, there is one thing you need to be mindful of. So the chatbot queries are written content. So it's different from a spoken language, and there are major difference between written content and spoken language. If you are using the data from a written content, you need to make sure you have translated that to a spoken content. Otherwise, it might sound weird. As we all know, FAQ pages is one of the most important elements of the service. So analyze the metrics of your FAQ portal will be the other approach to understand more about of your users. You can gather some insights from page views, bounce rates, or even visits to understand what your users are looking for in FAQ portals. This would help you to understand what are the most popular questions users are looking for in this portal. And the second lens is customer support. As you know, customer support team are the front line of the company. They talk to our users every single day. They know the most popular requests, the most frequent complaints, and the information users are looking for. Also, they have been trained to use the proper language to help our users. So to understand the general guidelines they follow up with when helping our users, this will help us to understand how customer support team facilitate questions, conversations, what specific terms they usually use, and what terms user usually reply with. If you want to understand more about customer support team, there are a few tactics you can use. For example, when I design for voice user interface, I have shadowed and listened it on calls. By listening with customer support team for our users on call, it reveals things that analyze chatbot queries alone might not be able to reveal. So what if you don't have a customer support team in your company? Well, shadowing the counter or receptionist in any kind of similar service would be helpful. For example, if you want to understand how to sell a coffee, just go into a Starbucks and sitting next to the counter and listening to counter and how they facilitate conversation with the customer. Or if you want to understand a financial advisor and how do they chat about their topics, just ring a financial advisor and talk with them, and you will be able to understand how they facilitate a conversation and how they talk about their specialties. Apart from shadowing and ring the specialist, conducting a workshop will be able to help you understand more about our users. You can ask the customer support team to list down the most asked questions or how users phrase the question. Is there any question about your brand, or are there any special requests from our users? This will help us as a designer to understand more about our users. And besides frequently asked questions, you might focus on the design problems at hand. For example, how do users ask questions about it? Or why do they want to ask for it? And how customer support reply in an affirmative way, or even how they turn down requests. So going through those design activities would help you understand more about our users from customer support team. This would help you to build a holistic understanding of our users from customer support team. And the third lens is the in-depth interview. Conduct an in-depth interview with our users to understand how they say for a specific request and what's the most popular challenge when they are trying to request this service in the daily life. This will help us to understand the intents and utterance for the request from our user themselves. One of example from the medical appointment service I create at Babylon Health, when I conduct interview with our users to understand how do they respond to the service. What surprised me was that users in the UK prefer to express the time in a casual fashion instead of a specific time. We say, do you have, they usually say, is there anything available later? Or is there anything after work? This insight helped us to create an appointment service that allows users to express time in the most casual way and help us to build the most intuitive appointment booking service. Besides user interview, conduct interview with expert in the field will be able to helpful as well. In healthcare context, this will be a doctor, clinician, or a nurse. So you might ask, what of expert can be recruited in other professions? For example, if you are a voice application for cocktails. Recruiting bartender in a workshop will be helpful, or even facilitate questions or just interview with a bartender, it will be helpful as well. So those three lens would help you to build a holistic understanding of users and generate content ideas that increase accessibility. Let's recap on all the things we have went through today. Key takeaways on research for voice design. First, you need to conduct a research to understand the wider picture and build up a basic foundation of our users. This research will help you understand the context and identify key use cases. Then you can narrow it down to leverage all the available channels to gather more in-depth insights about your users. In this process, remember to figure out who is at the forefront of interacting with your users. It's either customer support team, a bartender, or even a barista. Last but not least, for voice and conversational design specifically, if you can be mindful of your daily conversations and test out your voice and conversational design in a daily conversation, you will be able to get some first-hand insights to inform your design decisions from daily conversations. So just test it out whenever you have a new design with your friends, coworkers, or a stranger when you want to test some conversation you designed. So that's it for me for today. If you have any questions, to drop in the chat or feel free to contact LinkedIn. My email is here, or drop me a message on Twitter. My handle is just @ZI. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, I think there are two questions already in the chat from Delphine. So first of all, she asked, how far is Alexa from actually understanding different English or Spanish accents? And the second question was, from your experience, what are the pros and cons of using Amazon Alexa compared to Google Voice?
This is a great question. So actually, let me rephrase the question again. How far is Alexa from actually understanding different English or Spanish accents? I would say it's getting there. It's getting there. And for Alexa, you will be easily pick up. I'm not familiar with Spanish accent, but even if as you can hear, I have accent for English. But right now, Alexa can easily pick up my accent. But even if you don't, that's where the importance of user experience comes in. Because if you can conduct the user research and testing when you are designing the service or the interface, you'll be able to understand what are the keywords that Alexa won't be able to pick up. And you can work with your engineer to customize these intents and utterance and implement into your service. For example, when I was designing the user interface for Babylon Health, because of my accent, sometimes Alexa pick it up as Babylon House. So, and remember the first time when I was designing for Babylon Health, so the service works like this. I always need to say, Alexa, open Babylon Health. And Alexa asks me if I want to buy a house. This is very frustrated. But if you can conduct, as I said, if you can conduct research with your users and pick up the accent and to train Alexa in that way, you'll be able to avoid these kind of mistakes. And the second question is, what are the pros and cons of partnering with Amazon Alexa and Google? I think the question will be Google Assistant. Pros and cons, I would say, technically, they both, the experience to work with them are both great. And until today, especially until this year, especially if you think about in the last 6 months under the pandemic, the users who have trying to access to Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa is so apparently these two services are getting very popular under this pandemic, and there are increasing demand for users getting into this service. So they have prepared a comprehensive list to help us design for the service. So I won't say it's pros and cons. I will say it's a different approach. But if you are a designer, developer, you can just check the checklist, or there is a conversational principles list in Amazon Alexa's design principles and Google Assistant. You'll be easily getting to the design process. But before that, I would highly suggest if you can, conduct research and testing with users for both of them, then you'll be easily identify what are the pros and cons for your service, because different industry sectors would use different way to phrase the conversation or to frame the questions or answers, or even conversation for your industry sectors. So I suggest you to jot down some basic questions and some basic questions about your service, or jot down some basic conversations about your industry sectors, and create a prototype to test with our users, Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, and test with your users. This will be the pros and cons with your service specifically and help you to avoid those mistakes. Are there any questions?
If there are any more questions, please use the chat function. I think everyone's happy for now, or is there one?
Great. Sorry. Just one more thing I want to include in the second question. So actually, there is one major difference from Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. So Amazon Alexa start to partner with some healthcare organizations and publish the healthcare applications in the States, because they have passed the HIPAA compliance, and so literally and legally they will be able to publish voice applications through their platform. But on the other hand, Google haven't been able to work with health like a legal organization to pass the HIPAA compliance. So HIPAA compliance basically is a compliance that is like a GDPR in GDPR for privacy. So HIPAA is like this kind of compliance in the States. Before an organization or company publish a application in healthcare context, they need to pass this compliance. And Amazon Alexa has already passed this compliance, and they have been some applications, but Google are still working on it. So if you work in a healthcare context, maybe you want to focus on Amazon Alexa first and Google Assistant later after them pass this compliance.
Stephen. So thank you, Stephen, for this really interesting insights. And thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed it as well. We will have a short break again, and we'll go on with our next session, social selling and lead generations at 2 sharp again. But feel free to use the networking function in the meantime. Remember, you can also open a roundtable yourself and just invite others. So thank you, Stephen, again.
Thank you very much. Feel free to contact me through my LinkedIn, email, or just add me at my Twitter, or even just networking with me later in this channel. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. See ya.